You know, life is a little like a restaurant. Some people spend hours describing what they want to eat. Some people argue about what's on the menu, and some quietly place their order. And before you know it, the food just arrives. In the same way, there are people who talk endlessly about their dreams, their plans, their next big move. And there are others who simply do the work, let the results speak, and watch everyone else's jaws drop. We live in a world where noise often gets more attention than value. Everyone's posting, announcing, declaring, or going to start this business. I'm going to get fit. I'm going to become successful. And I always think, that's nice, but I'd rather see the rehearing or play, see the results on, and I'd rather think, and either they become successful, I'm going to get fit. The truth is, you don't need to convince anyone you're capable. You don't have to announce every step you take. If your results are strong, they'll do the talking for you. And they'll talk a lot louder than your words ever could. Have you noticed the tallest trees in the forest don't go around announcing their height? They just grow and everyone notices. The river doesn't make a speech about reaching the ocean. It just flows day after day until it gets there. So instead of wasting energy telling people what you'll do, invest that energy into actually doing it. Keep your head down, stay consistent, and when your results show up, they'll be so loud that people who never believed in you will start telling others they always knew you'd succeed. And when that happens, smile, not because you need their approval, but because you know deep down that silence plus hard work is the most powerful combination in the world. Remember, success is not about making announcements, it's about making progress. And progress, my friend, is the loudest sound there is. We all have that one friend who's been about to start something amazing for years. They'll tell you in great detail about their business plan, the name of their future company, even the color of the office furniture. But somehow, the launch date keeps moving further away, like a bus you're always just about to catch. And if we're honest, sometimes that friend is us. Why does this happen? Because talking about dreams is exciting. It gives us a small burst of satisfaction, as though speaking it out loud somehow brings us closer to reality. We love imagining how it will feel when it happens. We picture ourselves there, successful, respected, maybe even famous. And while imagination is powerful, it's also a little dangerous, because if we're not careful, the talking starts replacing the doing. Think about it. If someone told you they were writing a book and you kept hearing about it for 5 years, but you never saw a single page, wouldn't you start to wonder if it was just a story about writing a story? Yet in life, we sometimes do exactly that. We keep telling the story of what we will achieve instead of sitting down to write the actual chapters of our success. The problem is Talking about our plans can trick our brain into feeling like we've already accomplished something. It's like announcing to everyone, I'm going to run a marathon, and then sitting on the couch eating ice cream because you feel a little proud just for saying it. But here's the truth: of pride without progress is just a very comfortable illusion. The real magic happens in the quiet, not in the kafa conversations about someday, not in the dramatic social media posts announcing the big change, but in the unglamorous, often boring daily grind. It's those early mornings when no one else is awake. It's the evenings you choose work over entertainment. It's doing the thing again and again until it's done right. Talking has its place. Sharing your goals can build accountability, can attract support, can inspire others. But there's a fine line, and if you cross it, your energy leaks into words instead of actions. And actions, not intentions, are what create results. It's like a seed. Imagine planting it and then holding a press conference every day to tell everyone how it's going to be the tallest, strongest tree in the park. The seed doesn't care about your speech. It only grows when it's given water, sunlight, and time. Your dreams work the same way. So maybe the next time you feel like telling the world what you're about to do, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, do I want to talk about this, or do I want to do this? Because when you put your head down and work, the results will one day arrive, and when they do, you won't need to announce them. People will see, they will know, and here's the best part: when your results are loud, they don't just tell your story, they tell it better than you ever could. When a flower blooms, it doesn't send out a press release. It doesn't say, "Excuse me, everyone, I'm about to open my petals, so please have your cameras ready." It simply blooms, quietly, naturally, and yet everyone notices. True achievement works the same way. You don't need to stand on a rooftop and shout about what you've accomplished. In fact, the most genuine victories in life often come without announcement. They arrive like the sunrise, steady and unstoppable, whether or not anyone is watching. The reason so many people feel the urge to constantly talk about their achievements is because they're still seeking validation. We want others to clap for us, to acknowledge us, to confirm that we're doing well. But here's the thing: when you've really achieved something, the results are impossible to hide. You could try to keep them a secret, and they'd still leak through in your confidence, in your stability, in the way you carry yourself. Think of the difference between a street performer and a master musician in a symphony hall. The street performer might shout, "Ladies and gentlemen, gather around," to draw attention. The master musician, they simply walk on stage, lift the instrument, and begin to play, and the music does the talking. The applause comes naturally, without a single word of self-promotion. There's also something powerful about letting people discover your achievements rather than serving them up in loud declarations. When someone finds out on their own that you built a thriving business, that you've transformed your health, that you've mastered a skill, it leaves a stronger impression. It shows them you didn't need their approval to keep going. You were committed to the process for its own sake. Another thing about quiet success, it protects your focus. The more you talk about what you've done, the more you invite opinions, and not all of them will be kind. Some will praise you, yes, but others will question, compare, or even try to pull you down. If your goal is to keep growing, you don't need that noise in your ears. By letting your results speak, you shield yourself from unnecessary distractions. And results do speak. They speak in bank statements and healthy bodies, in skills mastered and opportunities earned, in respect gained without demanding it. The right people will notice, and the ones who don't, well, they were never the audience you needed. We live in a time where even boiling an egg can become an Instagram story. But ask yourself, am I living for the applause, or am I living for the outcome? Applause fades quickly. Real achievement, on the other hand, leaves a lasting legacy. The bridge a builder creates will stand for decades. The book an author writes will live on long after the launch party. So maybe the next time you do something great, instead of announcing it, nurture it. Let it grow stronger before it meets the spotlight. Because when your results are truly powerful, you won't need to speak for them. They will walk into the room before you do. One of the most challenging things in life is to be misunderstood. You can have the purest intentions, yet people will sometimes look at your actions and assign the wrong meaning to them. They might say you're selfish when you're simply setting boundaries. They might say you're stubborn when you're just standing for what's right. They might call you the problem when you're actually working to fix it. Why does this happen? Because it's far easier to point a finger than to turn the mirror around. Blame is convenient. It doesn't require self-reflection. It doesn't require accountability. And it doesn't require change. But if someone can put the weight of a situation on you, they can avoid the discomfort of dealing with their own role in it. I remember once hearing about a young woman at work who kept pushing her team to improve their process. She brought new ideas, she suggested changes, and she even offered to stay late to make them happen. But instead of appreciation, some colleagues whispered, "She's making things complicated. She's always creating problems." They didn't realize she wasn't creating problems. She was revealing them so they could be solved. The truth was, her presence made it harder for people to ignore what needed fixing. And sometimes People prefer comfort over improvement. It's the same in personal life. You may speak up about something that feels wrong in a friendship or relationship, and instead of addressing the concern, the other person says, "You're overreacting," or "You're too sensitive." But let me tell you, sensitivity is not a weakness, it's awareness. If no one ever pointed out what's wrong, nothing would ever get better. When people misjudge you, the danger is not in their opinion, it's in you starting to believe it. Because once you let their judgment define you, you will begin to shrink. You will speak less, try less, and shine less just to avoid criticism. And in doing so, you're not protecting yourself. You're silencing the very qualities that could be the solution. Here's the truth. You cannot control what others think about you. You can only control your intention and your actions. If your intention is to bring light, to improve, to help, then you must hold on to that, even if others don't immediately see it. Remember, even the clearest water can look muddy when viewed through a dirty glass. Someone's perception of you often says more about the lens they're looking through than about who you truly are. History is full of people who were misunderstood in their time, innovators, leaders, reformers. They were called troublemakers because they challenged the way things were. They were called dreamers because their vision didn't fit the current reality. But without their persistence, without their refusal to be defined by others' opinions, the world would not have progressed the way it has. So when someone misjudges you, don't rush to prove them wrong with words. Let your consistent actions speak over time. Light doesn't argue with darkness. It just shines until the darkness has no choice but to fade. And remember, being misjudged is often a sign that you're shaking something that needed to be shaken. Don't confuse resistance for rejection. Sometimes the noise you hear from others is just the sound of change beginning. Keep going, because you might just be the very solution they didn't realize they needed. In life, there will always be two versions of your actions. The one you intend and the one others perceive. And sometimes those two versions don't match. You might have the purest heart, the most honest desire to help, yet someone will still misinterpret it. And God. That's why you can't measure your worth or purpose only by how others see you. Because perception is filtered through their own experiences, fears and biases. Intention is the seed, perception is the shadow it casts. And here's the thing, a seed may be buried underground, hidden from sight, but that doesn't mean it's not growing. In the same way, the value of your actions is not always visible right away. People may not understand your why today, but that doesn't mean your why is wrong. Let's take an example. Imagine you're helping a friend who's going through a difficult time. You check in on them, offer advice, and encourage them to keep going. But one day, they get upset and say, "You're just judging me. You think you're better than me." That may hurt because in your heart, you know your intention was love, not judgment. The truth is, your action passed through the filter of their current pain, and pain can distort perception. It's the same in the workplace. You might give constructive feedback to improve a project, but a colleague sees it as criticism. They may label you as overly critical when, in reality, you just care about quality. If you keep chasing approval, you'll start watering down your truth just to please everyone. And in the process, you'll stop being effective. Here's what you must remember: intention is what builds character. Perception is what builds reputation. You have control over one, but not the other. And if you're forced to choose between protecting your character or your reputation, always choose character. Reputation can change with the winds of opinion, but character remains steady no matter the storm. There's a powerful lesson from nature here. A lighthouse's intention is simpler: to guide ships safely to shore. But to a ship headed in the wrong direction, that same light may feel like a warning or even an obstacle. The lighthouse doesn't dim itself based on how the ship feels about it. It keeps shining because it knows its purpose. When you live with clear, honest intentions, you gain an inner peace that no misinterpretation can take away. You no longer need everyone to agree with you to feel secure. You stop performing for approval and start acting from conviction. And that is where your real strength comes from. Yes, there will be moments when being misunderstood hurts. You might lose opportunities, friendships, or recognition because someone saw you in a way that wasn't true. But the question is, will you allow that to make you doubt yourself? Or will you hold firm, knowing that time often reveals the truth of our intentions? Because here's the reality: perception may dominate in the short term, but intention wins in the long run. So keep your why pure, your heart clean, and your actions steady. The right people at the right time will see the truth. Until then, let your intention be the anchor that keeps you grounded in the middle of the waves of opinion. We live in a world that often celebrates what is seen and overlooks what is unseen. The loudest voices, the most visible results, the grand achievements, these are the things that get applause. But life's real strength often lies in the quiet, unseen efforts that no one talks about. The late nights you spend working while everyone else sleeps. The small acts of kindness you do without expecting anything back. The personal sacrifices you make that no one will ever know about. It's easy to feel invisible when your work goes unnoticed. You might think, does it even matter if no one sees it? But here's the truth. The seed does its most important work underground. It pushes through the soil, gathers strength, and grows roots long before anyone ever sees the first green shoot above the surface. Without those hidden roots, the tree could never stand tall. Think about a mother or father working multiple jobs to provide for their children. There are no award ceremonies for the sacrifices they make, no social media posts celebrating the bills they quietly pay, the meals they prepare, the late night worries they endure. And yet, those unseen efforts are the very foundation of their family's stability and growth. Or imagine the friend who checks on you every so often, not with grand gestures, but with a simple, "How are you?" or "I'm here if you need me." They may never get public recognition, but those small acts can mean the world when you're struggling. The absence of applause doesn't mean the act has no value. It just means it's operating at a deeper, quieter level. The problem is, we sometimes measure the worth of our contribution by how much attention it gets. If no one praises us, we start thinking it wasn't worth it. But being the solution is really about standing in the spotlight. More often, it's about holding things together when no one is watching. It's showing up consistently, doing the work that matters, and trusting that its impact will be felt, even if your name isn't attached to it. In sports, there's a concept called the sung hero. The player who doesn't score the winning goal, but makes the pass that made it possible. They may not be in the headlines, but without them, the team wouldn't have succeeded. Life is full of these moments. Sometimes you are the one scoring, sometimes you are the one making the pass. Both matter. Here's something important to remember. The world may not always notice your efforts, but people's lives are still changed because of them. And more importantly, you are changed because of them. Every unseen act of discipline builds your character. Every unseen act of kindness strengthens your compassion. Every unseen act of perseverance sharpens your resilience. So, don't discount your quiet work. Don't wait for applause to validate your worth. A candle doesn't burn so people will clap for it. It burns because that's what it was made to do. In the same way, your unseen efforts are part of who you are. The builder, the helper, the solution. Whether the world notices or not, keep going, because the results of your hidden work will often show up long after the moment has passed, and they will be stronger, deeper, and more lasting than any applause could ever give you. Every great success story has one thing in common. Somewhere along the way, there were people who didn't believe it could happen. Critics, doubters, the ones who say, "Are you sure you can do this?" Or, "That's not realistic." Sometimes they even laugh, not out of malice, but because they simply can't see what you see. And that's okay. It's not your job to convince them. In fact, arguing with doubters is one of the quickest two ways waste your energy. Words rarely change deep skepticism. But do you know what does? Results. When you produce results, They speak a language even your loudest critics understand. You don't have to shout back. You don't have to defend yourself. Your success does the talking for you. It's like standing in front of someone who said you could never paint and quietly unveiling a masterpiece. No debate needed. Just a silent, undeniable, here it is. The truth is, some people doubt you because they're projecting their own limitations. They can't imagine themselves achieving it, so they assume you can't either. Others doubt because they've only ever known you in one version. Before version, they remember your mistakes, your setbacks, your past struggles, and they believe those define you forever. But growth is powerful. Results have a way of rewriting your story in their minds. There's a certain poetic justice in success. The same people who once questioned, you may one day say, I always knew you could do it, but, and maybe they didn't, but that's not the point. The point is, you didn't let their doubt define your destiny. You kept working, kept building, and let your results become your response. History is full of such examples. Authors whose manuscripts were rejected dozens of times before becoming bestsellers. Athletes told they were too small or too slow, who went on to break records. Innovators laughed at for impossible ideas that are now everyday parts of our lives. What do all these stories have in common? The critics were silenced, not by arguments, but by undeniable achievement. Here's the beauty of letting results answer for you. It frees you from the constant need to explain yourself. When you stop chasing approval, you start chasing excellence. And when excellence comes, it doesn't just surprise the doubters, it inspires them. Sometimes the very people who questioned you are the ones who become your biggest supporters once they see what you've done. So if you're facing criticism right now, remember this. You don't need to win the argument today. You don't need to prove them wrong with words. Just keep moving, keep building, keep working in silence. One day, your results will stand like a monument, visible to everyone, undeniable to anyone, and you won't have to say a single thing, because results don't just silence critics, they turn your story into a lesson. A lesson that says, doubt me if you must, but watch what happens next. In life, you will be tested, not by calm, easy days, but by moments that poke at your patience, your emotions, and your values. It's in those moments that you face a choice to react or to respond. The difference between the two may seem small, but it's the difference between pouring gasoline on a fire and pouring water on it. Reaction is immediate, emotional, and often impulsive. It's like a reflex. You get hurt, you lash out. Someone insults you, and you throw words back without thinking, but response is deliberate. Response means you take a breath, assess the situation, and choose your words or actions with wisdom instead of pure emotion. There's a story of two shopkeepers whose stores were right next to each other. One day, a customer came into the first store and complained loudly about how bad the products were, comparing them to the shop next door. The owner of the first store reacted with anger, shouting back, "Then why don't you go shop there instead?" The argument escalated, and the customer left, not just for the day, but forever. The next week, the same customer went to the second shop, made the same complaint, and waited for a reaction. But this shopkeeper simply smiled and said, "I'm sorry to hear that. Tell me what you didn't like, and I'll see how I can make it better for you." That calm response not only kept the customer, but turned them into a loyal buyer. What changed? The first shopkeeper reacted from ego, the second responded from understanding. One fueled conflict, the other built connection. Choosing to respond over reacting doesn't mean you suppress your feelings or let people walk over you. It means you stay in control of yourself instead of letting the situation control you. When you react, the problem dictates your behavior. When you respond, your values dictate your behavior. Imagine someone throws mud at you. If you throw it back, you both end up dirty. But if you take a moment, step aside, and let it fall, you remain clean, and you've saved your energy for something better. In tense moments, responding takes strength because it often feels less satisfying in the short term. The quick comeback, the angry text, the sarcastic reply, they give a temporary release, but in the long run, they can damage relationships, opportunities, and even your peace of mind. Responding requires patience, and patience is built in small, everyday choices. It's built when you pause before sending that email, when you listen fully before speaking, when you remind yourself, not every battle is worth fighting. It's a quiet strength, the strength to be calm in the storm, to think when others are shouting, to stand steady when others are shaking. The truth is, problems often grow because people react without thinking. But solutions often appear when someone is willing to pause, to think, and to choose the path that leads to resolution, not escalation. And that someone can be you. The next time you feel the heat rising, ask yourself, am I about to make things better or worse? That question alone can create the space you need to turn a reaction into a response. And over time, that habit can transform not just situations, but your entire life. Because solutions are born in the moments when we choose wisdom over impulse. One of the most freeing moments in life is when you realize you don't need applause to keep moving forward. Approval from others can feel wonderful. It can give you a rush, a sense of validation, a warm glow that says, they see me. But if that's the only fuel you have, the engine of your progress will always be in someone else's control. Think about it. If your motivation depends entirely on likes, compliments, or public recognition. What happens when those things stop coming? Do you stop too? That's the trap of external approval. It's inconsistent, unpredictable, and often fleeting. One day, you're everyone's favorite story, and the next, they've moved on to someone else. Internal satisfaction, on the other hand, is steady. It comes from knowing you've made real progress, even if no one else has noticed yet. It's the quiet pride you feel when you close your laptop after hours of work, knowing you've built something that didn't exist before. It's the satisfaction of looking back a month or a year and realizing you've grown in skill, in discipline, in resilience. I once heard someone say, don't measure your success with someone else's ruler. That stuck with me, because here's the truth. Other people's approval is based on their perspective, their values, their priorities, not yours. If you try to shape your progress just to please them, you might end up climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. Internal satisfaction is deeply personal. Only you know the obstacles you've overcome, the fears you've faced, the discipline it took to keep going when no one was watching. External approval can't always see that. It tends to celebrate the end result, not the journey. But you can celebrate both. When you focus on genuine progress rather than applause, you also give yourself permission to grow at your own pace. You don't rush to meet someone else's timeline, and you're not paralyzed by the fear of judgment. You're playing a different game, one where the scoreboard is in your heart, not in the public eye. This doesn't mean you should ignore encouragement or constructive feedback. External approval can be a nice bonus, like a sprinkle of sugar on top of a cake. But the cake itself, the real substance, comes from your own sense of accomplishment. You should be able to sit quietly at the end of the day, look at what you've done, and feel proud, even if no one else saw it happen. Here's the irony. When you stop chasing approval and start chasing progress, the approval often comes anyway. People are drawn to those who are deeply focused, self-driven, and committed to their craft. They can sense the authenticity, and it's magnetic, but by then, you don't need it. You already fulfilled from within. So let the applause be background music, not the drumbeat you march to. Make your progress your primary source of satisfaction, because in the long run, external approval fades, but the pride of knowing you've grown, really grown, stays with you forever. It's tempting to think that the louder we talk about our dreams, the closer we are to achieving them. We announce them to friends, post them online, share them at every gathering, and for a brief moment, it feels like progress. But here's the truth: volume doesn't equal velocity. Just because a goal is loudly proclaimed doesn't mean it's any closer to reality. Real success isn't measured in decibels. It's measured in distance traveled toward a destination. You could be moving quietly but steadily toward your dream, and that's worth infinitely more than shouting about it from the starting line. Think about a runner in a marathon. One runner might spend the first mile waving at the crowd, high-fiving spectators, and telling everyone about their strategy. The other runner might keep their head down, focus on their breathing, and conserve energy. Who's more likely to cross the finish line strong? The one who measured success not by how loudly they participated in the moment, but by how much ground they actually covered. Talking about goals can sometimes create a false sense of accomplishment. It's easy to mistake discussion for action. You might feel a surge of pride when people praise your ambition, but that pride doesn't move you forward an inch. Movement, consistent, intentional movement, is the only thing that does. Measuring success by action also protects you from the trap of comparison. When the standard is who can talk the biggest game, it becomes about performance, not progress. But when the standard is who is actually moving toward their goal, it becomes about discipline, persistence, and adaptability. Qualities that last far beyond the moment of applause. And here's something else to consider. And talking too loudly about your goals can attract unnecessary pressure. If you make a bold statement about what you'll achieve and then hit a setback, you might feel embarrassed or tempted to give up altogether. But when you focus quietly on movement, you give yourself space to adjust your route without feeling like you failed in the public eye. Small, steady progress might not be flashy, but it's incredibly powerful. Writing one page a day, learning one new skill each week, saving a little money each month. These small actions compound over time into something significant. You don't need to tell the world about each step. The real proof will come when the journey is complete and the result is undeniable. This is why some of the most successful people often appear to come out of nowhere. They didn't, of course. They were moving toward their goals all along, quietly, while others were busy talking. The day their success became visible was simply the day it crossed the finish line. So, if you truly want to measure your success, ask yourself this: am I closer to my goal today than I was yesterday? If the answer is yes, even by the smallest margin, you are succeeding. And that's worth far more than the loudest speech in the room. Because in the end, success is a journey of steps, not a performance of words. And every quiet step forward counts. Life will always test your resolve right before the breakthrough comes. The final stretch is often the hardest, not because you're weaker, but because you're closer than you've ever been. The obstacles seem taller, the challenge is heavier, and the doubts louder. But that's not a sign to stop. That's the signal that the finish line is near. Think about mountain climbers who are just a few hundred meters from the summit. The air is thinner, every step feels heavier, and the wind cuts harder. They've already endured hours or days of climbing, but it's the last part of the climb that truly demands everything they've got. Many turn back there, not realizing that just beyond the ridge lies the view they've been chasing all along. The same thing happens in life. You might be building a business, chasing a degree, fighting for your health, or trying to master a craft. At the beginning, motivation is high. In the middle, the grind sets in. And in the final moments before success, resistance peaks. This is where most people quit. Not because the goal is impossible, but because they mistake the hardest part for a sign that they can't go on. But here's the truth. The closer you get to a dream, the greater the resistance. And if you understand that, you'll stop seeing difficulty as a warning sign and start seeing it as confirmation. When life pushes back harder, it's usually because you're pushing into new territory you've never reached before. You're breaking through limits, and limits never break quietly. The key in these moments is endurance, not sprinting with bursts of unsustainable energy, but holding steady with the same pace that got you this far. Your strength is built in the final steps, and your story is defined by whether you take them. It's also worth remembering that no one sees the final grind the way you do. People will see your achievement later and call it lucky, effortless, or inevitable. They won't see the late nights, the near breakdowns, the silent moments where you questioned it all. That's okay. Your job isn't to make them understand. Your job is to keep going until there's no doubt left about what you're capable of. And sometimes that means going forward even when you can't see the finish line. You might be closer than you think, but the path ahead is hidden by one last curve. Imagine quitting just a few steps before it came into view, not knowing you were right there. So when things feel unbearable, when you feel squeezed from all sides, when you're tempted to throw it all away, that's your cue to dig in harder. Take one more step, then another, then another. Don't stop because it's difficult. Keep going because it's difficult. That difficulty is proof you're almost there. Because the truth is, the last mile is the one that makes the victory taste so sweet. And if you can endure that mile, you'll not only reach the finish line, you'll cross it knowing you became the kind of person who doesn't break under pressure, but rises because of it.